Last Friday was the first drug court session. We've got 2 participants in.
How were they chosen?
Technically, they came through what's called a probation track. When we first set this up, we weren't sure if we really wanted to bring people in right away on probation tracks, which means these are a couple of folks that had been convicted some time ago. They'd been on probation. They were not doing well. They were being violated for failure to make progress, and the violation was going to land them in prison. There is nothing at that point. The probation officers were saying that there is nothing else that they could do with them. But along comes drug court, and so they were given the opportunity to come into drug court, which is a completely different and much more intense level of probation.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're addicted. I mean, they can't get off, essentially.
Right. And that's part of the violations that they were having, is continued to use. Regular probation there's a pretty good level of supervision there, but it's nothing like with drug court.
Mm-hmm.
So with drug court, they're going to have to see their probation officer at least 3 or more times a week. They're going to be tested at least 3 times a week or more. They're going to have a very structured schedule, including curfews and things like that. These are all things that most likely would not occur in regular probation. So regular probation, they would see their probation officer on a regular basis, not 3 or more times a week, though, usually. They would be tested for drugs, but more like once or twice a month maybe, as opposed to 3 times a week. So the intensity level, our ability to keep them straight and clean, is significantly higher. And that's what they need. They need that intense supervision to stay on the right path so they can get off the drugs. Of course, getting into treatment and following through on the treatment is critical. Another component that is in both of these cases, and is not at all unusual, is that there's also mental health concerns. And kind of balancing that mental health treatment and the chemical dependency treatment is something that takes real close supervision, and it's really difficult to do it under regular probation. So these couple of guys, as they're going through their normal probation, they just weren't cutting it. They weren't making it. And as I said, we kind of didn't want to start with probationers right away in drug court, but when these 2 guys presented themselves, it was like, you know what, they are the candidates that we're looking for. And so we thought we'd get them going. So, yeah, I had the first session on Friday.
So now, what's the time frame on this? How long are they in drug court, and at what point is there a cutoff for to say, well, it's just not going to work for these guys, or it's been successful?
Yeah. The drug court is going to be, it's 5 phases, and each phase averages about 3 to 4 months. So 18 months is kind of the minimum period that somebody could get through if everything goes great.
Mm-hmm.
If there's hiccups along the way, more realistically, probably about 24 months to get through. There is an expectation that people are going to struggle, especially early. The first phase is 60 days long, but it's very intense supervision, and that's where people are going to struggle. It's it's no less than 60 days, and then the next phase is another 3 months. Those are the phases where people are going to really struggle. Once they get into the back end of it, they should be able to cruise through, maintain sobriety. But so the expectation is, 18 to 24 months is probably going to be pretty typical, and people are going to they're going to struggle. When people get kicked out, and that's a reality that we all expect will happen along the way, not necessarily with these couple of people, but at some point, the team will basically say, we've done everything we can. All the testing, everything, we can't keep them clean, can't keep them law-abiding, whatever. And at that point, the judge will pull the plug on it, and it should be pretty much an automatic trip to St. Cloud.
What is the failure rate? Any numbers?
It depends on the drug court. Some drug courts, the drug courts that take the high-risk folks, which is ideally the ones you should, they could have failure rates in the 35-40% range. I mean, there's a number of people. I mean, you want to give them that last chance, but there's a number of people that just can't cut it. Sometimes people fail. They kind of almost opt out because it's too hard. I remember the story. Well, I think it was Tiffany Hunsley when she was in drug court in Wabasha County. And this goes back a few years, but I remember her talking about she missed a curfew by 15 minutes, and her sanction for that was to clean the courtroom. So just missing a phone call by 15 minutes, and she got, the courtrooms are kind of big in Wabasha County. It wasn't the cleanest place, and so she had to tidy up the courtroom. And so there are some people that, as they go along, they go, you know what, screw this. I don't need this. I'd rather go sit in prison for 4 years or whatever it is and come out and not have to worry about this.